Good evening and welcome to the regular council meeting for Wednesday, June 21st. We are starting right at 6 p.m. And at this time, I'd like to confirm the agenda. Are there any emergent items from any of the councillors for tonight's agenda? No. Anything from lead services or admin?
Nothing from administration, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Then I'm looking for a motion to confirm the agenda as presented. Councillor Langmaid.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'd like to move that Council adopt the June 21st, 2023 regular council meeting agenda as presented.
Thank you. All in favor? And that motion is carried, which brings us to item 3 of the public hearing. The public hearing for bylaw 23-15 being a bylaw to amend the land use bylaw number 14-11 is in session at 6:02 p.m. The public hearing is held pursuant to the Municipal Government Act, RSA 2000, Chapter M-26, and amendments thereto. Jonathan?
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. The purpose of the public hearing is to discuss bylaw 2315. First reading was given during the May 17th, 2023 regular council meeting. The public hearing was advertised on the town's website. Canada Post regular mail was sent to adjacent landowners on May 24th, June 5th, 2023 on Facebook, June 7th in the Strathmore Times, June 12th on Facebook, June 14th in the Strathmore Times, June 19th on Facebook, and June 20th on Facebook. To date, when we prepared the agenda, one written submission was received. That was from Barbara Hicklin, as she has requested that we read her comments out loud. She stated, "I still believe the fence needs to be replaced with a new 6-foot one to keep the area separated. I would like the town to redesignate the road Centennial Drive where the seed cleaning plant's entrance was. I believe the number of parking spots for just the development for phase 1 is too much traffic and the future phase 2 is too much traffic for Bayside Place. So this development can use an entrance off Centennial Drive, not Bayside Place." Furthermore, since this agenda was circulated, 2 more pieces of correspondence was received by the town, which has been circulated with the council.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Pursuant to the town's procedure bylaw, the following rules of conduct shall be followed during the public hearing to ensure procedural fairness. No person shall address council without permission of the mayor. No person shall speak more than once or for more than 5 minutes, exclusive of the time required to answer questions from council. Respect for staff, council, and the public shall always be maintained, and any person who wishes to address council shall state and spell their name. The order of presentations shall be the administration, those in favor of the bylaw, those opposed to the bylaw, any other person deemed to be affected by the bylaw. Council may ask questions of the speakers after each presentation for clarification purposes, and there will be no debating the bylaw. Would administration like to present now? Good evening, Chuck. This is Chuck Proctor in our planning department, and welcome, Chuck.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. Okay, so here we go. So I'm here presenting bylaw 23-15 on behalf of administration. Again, my name is Chuck Proctor. I'm the manager of development services for the town of Strathmore. So staff have received a land use bylaw redesignation application from Rockwall Holdings Limited. And the site is 9 Bayside Place, Lot 9, Block 1, 781-0935. And it's the site of the former seed cleaning plant in Strathmore. Medium density townhomes are proposed. So just to confirm what Jonathan had said in Ledge Services there, these are our notices. Copy of our notices are also in the agenda package. This was the one posted in the Strathmore Times on June 7th and June 14th. On our website as well, we posted a link to the public hearing report and bylaw on May 23rd, and then we posted on Facebook June 5th, 12th, and 15th as well, linking folks to that public hearing section on our website. So the site in question is the one on red on your screen there. You can see the Trans-Canada Highway running east and west, and then north and south is Highway 817. So to kind of get your bearings, a little bit northeast of where we are right now at Town Hall. So just another photo of the site showing kind of there's a variety of low density, medium density, and industrial operations nearby. And just some Google Street View photos of the site. The top two are from Center Street looking at the site. The bottom left is looking east on Centennial, and then the bottom right is from the front in Bayside Place. So this is our current land use map for the area. You can see a mix of different colors. Every color on the map just represents a different land use district. The yellow is low density, green is affordable housing and kind of public service. R2X is your medium density, and then your purples are your industrials. So we have M1 and M2. So it's surrounded, the site currently is M2, and it's surrounded by a mix of uses. And it's just important to note that M2 is Strathmore's heaviest industrial land use district. So a concurrent application has been received for subdivision on this site. And just to go over what we're proposing tonight, the northern portion, the kind of lighter peach color on your screen, is for the future and is proposed to be R2X medium density attached housing, but with a limit of 2 stories on that northern parcel. The southern parcel is proposed as just our regular R2X medium density attached housing district. And the south parcel is more present. If council supports the amendment tonight, development may happen this year. They could go up to 3 stories on that southern orange part. So just to kind of go over some of the planning literature and stuff that supports the application, Strathmore is part of the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan. In this plan, modestly increasing density in urban communities is a goal, and it's all about the more sustainable, efficient use of land and services for growth. Also, Strathmore's municipal development plan in 2014 has some supporting policies. I won't read these word by word, but it's about creating complete communities which offer a range of housing to support a range of lifestyles, incomes, and cultures. Development shall be focused, again, close to collector roadways is another policy, and be central, close to neighborhood amenities. And then Bayside Place, 9 Bayside Place isn't in the downtown, but one of our downtown policies is reusing these underutilized sites and vacant sites, redeveloping them. So I thought that was an important policy to include. In addition to the literature that I just mentioned, Town of Strathmore Council has a 2022 to 2025 strategic plan. Administration has backup policies to help council reach those goals, and I think that these 3 goals of council are supporting the application tonight: affordable living, intentional community development, and community wellness. The text in white there is kind of describes the goal, and the green is the measure of progress. So for affordable housing, council wanted to increase the availability of affordable housing. The measure of progress was going to be housing starts, the ratio of owned to rental properties in Strathmore, and the percentage of citizens reporting Strathmore as an affordable community. For intentional community development, it was all about connective communities, diversity, and inclusivity. And our measure of progress was going to be citizens reporting an increased community connectedness. And then finally, community wellness is the efficient and effective service of community services. And the per capita usage of civic amenities like the pool and our parks and pathways is going to be the measure of progress. The Wheatland Seniors Housing Needs Assessment kind of noted a lack of affordable housing in the region. It mentioned that there's a lack of affordable choices also for seniors. There's a wide range of incomes among the seniors, but there's not a lot of choices for them, so they end up choosing the lodge because it's one of the only choices that they can choose. That was one of the findings of that report. The town's social needs assessment, which can be found online, noted that the number of low-income families, primarily women-led, but with a growing number of lone parent father-led families, is growing in Strathmore. That was a key finding of that report. And concerns regarding housing and higher costs of housing and rent were cited by 74% of respondents in the citizen satisfaction survey. Oops. So housing and cost of living is being kind of discussed globally. We hear about this missing middle, this not everybody can afford $800,000, $600,000 single detached. We need more stuff like suites and row houses, townhouses, that kind of thing to offer a wide variety of housing for folks. Other municipalities are trying to attract affordable housing and different types of housing. Calgary is one of them. And the proposal tonight, the developer's here to speak about it, but a portion of it is for affordable housing. And it does offer something other than a single detached, which primarily is made up of Strathmore. That's the dominant housing style that we have in town. So just so council's aware, I've had the following conversations with staff. I'll let everybody talk tonight. I don't want to take the words out of anybody's mouth, but just so council's aware, I've heard of some privacy and balcony complaints from Centennial Drive. Looking southwards, I've found separation and fencing concerns from 8 Bayside Place. Someone mentioned traffic and the entrance from Centennial instead of Bayside Place. And someone mentioned density concerns, the number of people, and parking. Just wanted to mention that for council. The developer's here tonight. I'll let them talk about their site, but this is just a conceptual site plan that's been included for council's information. Some things might change on here, but it's just meant to give council an idea of what you're making a decision on tonight. This could happen if council supports the land use amendment, but I'll let the developers talk in detail about that one. And just our recommendation tonight is that council take into the consideration all the feedback given here at the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Are there any questions from council for Chuck? Chuck, one question I have is maybe could you speak a little more about the trip generation analysis as far as vehicle trips in and out of the potential site?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. So the manager of infrastructure and I just did have a chat earlier this afternoon, and we did receive a letter from professional engineers. There was a trip analysis performed, and the results were not significant traffic was going to be generated for this. So we have received a letter. We've received everything that we've required, stating that there are no concerns, no adamant concerns that there's going to become a parking or traffic problem as a result of this development. It's not at that density to push things over the limit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And could you just maybe elaborate a bit more on the fence that's been asked about between 9 and 8 Bayside Place?
Thanks, Your Worship. I believe that it's currently a chain link fence between on the south end of Bayside, and I believe the person that I spoke to wanted that fence replaced with something more opaque, something more solid to maybe have people not looking right at their front doors kind of thing. I think that's the complaint or the note that I received.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions from councilors? Thank you, Chuck. Oh, sorry, Councillor Mitzner, I didn't see your light.
Can you refresh me, please, and tell me how many of these units are 3-bedroom and how many are 2-bedroom, please?
Thank you, Councillor Mitzner. That might be a better question for the developer. He said 25 and 25.
Thank you, Councillor Mitzner. And thank you, Chuck. We'll move now to the next stage or the next aspect of the public hearing. Is there anyone present who supports the bylaw who wishes to speak? And I believe we have Steve Marofka. Okay, thank you, sorry. And Cam Enns is also here to speak as well. Thank you for coming tonight.
There we go. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Fuel and councillors. Well, here we are again, contemplating 9 Bayside Place. So we have a revised proposal for development of purpose-built townhomes for you tonight. So as you mentioned, with me tonight is Cam Enns, President and CEO of New Rock Developments. I'm Steve Marofke, VP of Operations for LiveWell Communities, Inc. Together, our organizations form Rockwall Holdings Limited, and we are working together to build multifamily rental projects in Southern Alberta and Saskatchewan under the CMHC Select program. So the CMHC Select program is designed to help communities across Canada address housing shortages. And we feel that Strathmore is a good candidate for a project like this due to currently very low vacancy rates and also new opportunities coming to town that only increase the need for additional housing. So just as a refresher, earlier this year, we proposed for 9 Bayside Place to subdivide it into 2 parcels, a north and a south. The north parcel being the one slated for development in the very near future, with no plans for future development on the south. That project design contemplated 5 3-story buildings totaling 60 units of stacked townhomes under the town's R3M medium density modest residential district, and we were asking for some modifications and relaxations to that district, including a height relaxation. It would have been a mix of 2 and 3 bedroom units, 100 parking stalls, with decks facing north, east, and southwest, and would have had a connection to the existing municipal pathway, perimeter fencing, and tree planting. After that proposal was voted down earlier this year, we reviewed the feedback from the community, and we still felt that a design for this land could be done that accomplished the goal of multifamily housing, but that improved the meshing or the interface with the already existing homes to the north and to the east. Now, and height was a particular concern as part of that proposal. So the revised design still splits the lot into a north and south parcel. For the north parcel, we've requested the town's stock R2X medium density attached housing district with 1 modification requested, and that is to limit development on this parcel to 2 stories. There is no current plan for our group to develop this north parcel. The yellow buildings illustrated in the drawing, pardon me, I'm not caught up here. The buildings illustrated on the north parcel only serve to demonstrate what could potentially go there. And so that it would be about 30 townhomes that are depicted there. But most importantly, we felt that limiting this site to a 2-story site would effectively improve that meshing with the already existing 2-story homes to the north and to the east, and hopefully alleviate some of the major height concerns from the community that were expressed during the previous proposal. Under this revised design, it is now the south parcel that we would develop in the near future. For this parcel, we're requesting the town's stock R2X medium density attached housing district with no modifications or relaxations requested. The 3-story buildings from the original design have been relocated and reoriented to the west and south property lines. A building has been deleted, reducing the density to 50 units, down from 60. This would still be a mix of 2 and 3 bedroom units. It would have 83 parking stalls with visitor parking. This is the same ratio of parking to units that was also proposed in the original application. And we've added a green space amenity area bordering the north parcel with playground equipment in it, in an effort to alleviate some concerns about children being on site and possibly ending up in Bayside Place. And under this redesign, the decks coming off the backs of the homes now face either west towards industrial lots or south towards Centennial Drive. This would still also contemplate a connection to the existing municipal pathway system, privacy fencing, and tree planting. The essential design of the buildings is the same. So these are the 3-story stacked townhomes. All of the front porches of these buildings would face inwards towards the parking area. And again, the rear decks now face west and south, facing industrial or Centennial Drive. And just the side view. Just a refresher, this is what the interior of the units look like. They are rental units, but they are actually built to a for-sale spec, so they're nice units. So we got a couple of questions and comments this time around. One of the questions we received was, will the existing grade of the site be lowered? And other than grading to make the site appropriate for construction, no, there's not going to be any substantial lowering of the grade on that site. It's a fairly flat site already. And another concern that was sent our way was from actually somebody across Centennial Drive to the south about those balconies facing into Centennial Drive and potentially into their yards. So our response to that, I mean, the distance between the back of the south buildings along Centennial Drive, between those buildings and the fence line to the homes on the south is 38 meters. And I have here, so that's that distance right there. So again, on one of these line of sight diagrams, I mean, we're not saying that there wouldn't be any impact at all, but these decks are definitely not going to be right on top of the people across Centennial Drive. You may be aware that there are people out on their decks, but I don't personally feel that there will be a major impact to people being in their backyards. And just going back, we did actually receive one positive comment back from somebody from the community, just saying, hi, thanks for the revised proposal, and that they thought that it might actually work well for the community. So thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you for your presentation. Are there any questions for Steve at this time? Councillor Langmaid?
Thank you, Your Worship. I see in the revised plan that the number of units has been reduced from 60 to 50. How does that change the number of affordable units that are available?
The ratio stays the same, so if it's 20% of the units that have to be set aside, it's still 20%. It doesn't change.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there would be
So there would be slightly fewer affordable and slightly fewer of the regular.
Thank you. That was my only question.
I had just one question, and maybe it's if there's a chance I could just ask it of Chuck again. And Chuck, I understand you had that transportation letter done and a trip generation analysis. That was just for the first phase, correct?
Was it Steve?
Or did it take into consideration the potential?
I think it took into consideration the entire site, Your Worship.
Okay.
Yeah, and it wasn't anything substantial noted in the letter.
Thank you. And then my next question is, if it did turn out that it was a bit difficult with transportation and vehicles coming and going, is there the opportunity to have, say, a right-in, right-out exit on Centennial Drive? Is that a consideration that could also be?
I don't believe so, Your Worship.
Okay.
And that's coming from our professional engineer, not me.
Okay. Thank you.
The only access suitable from Centennial would be an emergency access. That's what I keep hearing from our engineering department.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Councillor Montgomery?
Thank you. Actually, Chuck, if you could, is parking allowed alongside Centennial on the north side?
Allowed. I'm not sure, Councillor Montgomery. I don't know.
Okay. And for the developer, what kind of fencing are you proposing along Centennial?
6-foot privacy fencing.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Thank you very much, Steve, for your presentation. So we move now in the public hearing to The question, is there anyone present who opposes the bylaw who wishes to speak? And I have a list of people here, so I guess I can call you up. Nancy Van Egmond, are you here? Yes. Okay, thank you. And if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself to the people at home.
Certainly. My name is Nancy Van Egmond. I'm actually reading a letter for my neighbor, so I have forfeit my spot. I thought that her letter said much the same as mine did, plus some other points that were pertinent, important. All right, this is from Mrs. Dawn Graham, number 19 Madison Court. To whom it may concern, I have several concerns about rezoning the property behind my home to medium-density residential that I feel will affect me greatly as I am a senior citizen and live on my own. They are as follows. My first main concern is that this development will completely block me in and obstruct any view I presently have. The height of these units will mean the upper stories of all units will be able to see directly into my yard, and my concern is that I will have no privacy whatsoever. I have already experienced some vandalism coming from foot traffic on the walking path. It worries me that with 300 to 350 plus residents moving in, this might increase. Is there a completion date for the proposed development? Will I have years of noise and equipment and dust to deal with? Will this proposed development affect the value of my home in the future? I have a great concern that this development will significantly decrease the value of my home. There will be a significant amount of noise at all times of the day and night, with a huge population of renters moving in next door. And I want council to know, I never did receive written notification of this newest proposal via mail. I watched for it upon the urging of my neighbors, and it never came. However, the developer paid me a visit on June 8th and told me the public hearing was set for June 27th. Maybe he was honestly mistaken, maybe he wasn't. These are my numerous and very valid concerns about this development and this developer. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Do you, just as a question for you, do you know the neighbor well? Do you know which, like I'm looking at an overhead photograph, do you know which property is hers that would back on the potential new development?
She backs right onto the...
Okay.
She's at number 19. She backs onto the walking path.
Okay. Oh, perfect.
Number 19. Do you have it there?
Okay. Okay.
She's right at the far end of Madison Court.
And do you know if she's aware that the units backing onto her property in the pathway are not 3-story?
She does, but this is on a significant elevation, right? It's on a hill. So even at 2 stories, the upper windows will be looking into yards.
Okay, thank you. I have down as my next speaker, Dirk Van Egmond. And if you would come forward and just, if you could say your name again, just for the public at home.
Good evening. My name is Dirk Van Egmond. I live in Madison Court, adjacent to the proposed project. I'm here tonight to ask council not to approve the bylaw amendment to redesignate number 9 Bayside Place as proposed by the developer. Simply put, the proposal to allow a development of 12-meter in height buildings is inappropriate for the site and the surrounding communities. The proposed site of the 12-meter and 3-story buildings is on the highest portion of the parcel. The natural topography of the area rises from the existing homes and offsetting industrial area from the east, from the north, from the west, and from the south. The elevation change of many feet in conjunction with the proposed 3-story or 12-meter height buildings will create buildings that will tower over the existing housing to the east, north, and south. This will result in a loss of privacy, a loss of scenic view, and will create a sense of encirclement and confinement. The proposal to ring the parcel with 12-meter high, 3-story buildings is inappropriate to the aesthetics of the existing area and will create an almost institutional feel for the area and the surrounding neighborhoods. You will be building essentially a 12-meter wall between the project and the neighborhoods surrounding it. This is simply what Strathmore is not about. If you approve these changes, there's really nothing to stop a future expansion to the north to 3 stories, as there's no difference in the proposed height restriction between the 2 parcels. Both parcels are actually slated in the proposal for 12 meters. Does it really matter if it's 2-story or 3-story? 12 meters is 12 meters. If you approve this as presented, this leaves it open to them coming back later and saying, you already approved it to 12 meters, so really what's the difference between 2-story and 3-story? The only thing that is being made certain to the residents by this is that future buildings will be 12 meters. This is documented on page 21 of the May 24th, 23 document from the town of Strathmore. So if you set a precedent to allow the 12 meter and 3 stories on the south portion, future council will have little ground to stand on if the developer later proposes 3 stories for the remainder of the property. This application does appear to be worded in such a way as to leave an opening for future changes. Tonight, council has the opportunity to make a decision to set the atmosphere of the community as a whole. Strathmore needs more housing, and specifically affordable housing. Multifamily units are an excellent way to do this. However, the design as presented is inappropriate and will create more of a division between the existing communities and the newly proposed units. I would suggest that the continuation of the building style already in place on the northern portion, I believe it's number 8 Bayside Place, would be more appropriate for the area and more appealing to the eye, thus maintaining the community atmosphere that is already being created in the area. I manage projects of over $50 million a year in spending. I understand this is a business. As a business, the developer is most likely to bring forward the most profitable to them design. A more community-friendly design or plan may be profitable, but may not be as profitable as the developer may like. This does not mean that this project changed would be unprofitable. It just means it might not be as profitable as their proposed plan. Sometimes a lower rate of return needs to be accepted in order to benefit the community. So I ask you tonight to put the neighborhoods and the family atmosphere that's been created surrounding this project ahead of the goals and profits of a corporation from outside our community. The town may not have people knocking down the doors to build these projects, but that does not mean you need to accept the first one that comes along or as proposed. So I ask you to decline the application for the amendment of the land use bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jen Chason.
Hi, I'm Jen Chesson, and that was incredible. That echoed a lot of my sentiments, so I appreciate you sharing that, Dirk. Thanks so much for the opportunity to speak tonight to the proposed bylaw 2315. There has been a lot of buzz in our neighborhood about this new development, and so I really wanted to get to the bottom of it and understand what exactly was being proposed and if the impacts to our neighborhood were as they were perceived, or if maybe they were, being kind of blown out of proportion. As I dug in speaking to New Rock directly, I understood more and more about the CMHC Select program and the terms of that agreement. As we were just talking, a lot of this development is around affordability, which I can appreciate. I myself actually lived in affordable housing as a child, so I really appreciate how that lends itself to creating a community that thrives and supports young people. However, I don't think this particular project does what it claims to do. Now, of course, I could argue what the CMHC terms are, which is 30% of the median income of an Albertan as a max rate, which is $1,800 a month, hardly affordable. But obviously, that's outside of the purview of the council to set the rent rates. Instead, I actually wanted to speak about New Rock and what their business model is and how it potentially could impact Strathmore and the residents here. So what was interesting to me as I dug into it is that committing the 25% of units, the 13 units for a 10-year period, really just gave them a better loan than they would receive out in the regular market. So they could have less down, more financing, longer term, with the agreement then that they would rent these rates affordably for 10 years. But the truth is, this agreement isn't actually between the land and CMHC. This agreement is between New Rock and CMHC. And so if New Rock were to sell these properties at a later date, the agreement essentially dissolves and there's no more affordable clause in place. So at that point, I started thinking, but what's the probability of that happening? Like, how could I make a claim that New Rock's going to sell these properties? But the truth is, and I would welcome your correction if I'm wrong, the truth is they don't have any of these projects up and running. They don't have a bunch of people renting from them. They are a development company, as their name suggests, not a property management company. They're still figuring that piece out. And while that's fine, and every business has a right to grow and, create new ideas and make new business models, the truth is it's not something that they're doing really well right now that they want to bring to Strathmore. It's something that they're trying out. So just as I was saying that I really appreciate Dirk's sentiment, I guess what I wanted to say is that as a resident who appreciates affordable housing, I'm concerned about the density, I'm concerned about the height, and what I'm really concerned about is that New Rock is asking you to accommodate some of their requests under the guise of affordable housing, when really that just isn't this project. So for today, I'm asking you to deny the request to have such high buildings on there. I'd love personally to see two-story side-by-side development that had adequate parking, yards for the units for children to play in, green spaces for neighbors to gather, just like we were talking about that community attachment. I think that these tall buildings with no yards, no green space, no neighbors fighting over parking spaces really doesn't lend itself well to that. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who opposes the bylaw who wishes to speak? Would you like to come forward and then just introduce yourself?
So I'm Tabitha Poole, and I'm a resident of Madison Court. I think one of my biggest concerns that I have in this is being approached as affordable housing. In return, when we go for the 80-20, only 13 of these units are affordable housing. So to promote it, that this is such a great thing, 50 units and only 13 are affordable housing, it is very misleading to people. And it needs to be stated that these are 13 units out of the 50 are affordable housing, and that's it. If it's stated, I guess $1,800 is the affordable housing. So out of those 13 units, $1,800. All the other units can be $2,500. We don't know. We don't know what they are cost. It's very, very misleading to say that this is affordable housing. And I think there's a lot of, I want to say miscommunication, maybe not some education on some people who think this is low-income housing, which it is not. This is affordable housing. So that is kind of my biggest concern. We've also had a lot of, I won't call it bullying because I don't like that word, a lot of gaslighting. Anytime a resident has called the town, on more than one occasion, we have been told that we are bad people because we are not supporting this, and it is going ahead no matter what. It's not fair. So our houses in Madison Court, the average house is 28 feet. These houses, these three-story houses, 40 feet on land that is already elevated. Like if you go from Madison Court to Bayside, this land is elevated. So you're gonna be 60 feet above. It doesn't make sense. And now you're putting it on the south end where you're driving up Center Street, you're looking at a great big wall. That's what's coming at you. You're driving from Thomas Drive to Centennial, it's a great big wall. Aesthetically, it is not pleasing. I think parking was already said. One of the residents in Madison Court did phone the town, and I'm not sure who they talked to, but they said parking was not allowed on Centennial Drive. And I guess if there's no access to this place from Centennial, it kind of alleviates some of my concerns about parking being on Centennial. If there's no parking, who is monitoring this? Bylaw only works till 5 o'clock. So when all these people get home from work and are parking on Centennial, who is monitoring this? I guess that's kind of not an issue anymore. And so I guess in the price of these units too, is there a condo fee? Is that including utilities? Like, a lot of this is not set out. I guess I'm not quite sure what I'm trying to say, but it needs to be more clear. You know, you may be paying $1,800 a month, but then is there a condo fee? Is there a property fee? Does it include utilities? This isn't affordable. I, as a single mom, I'm not a single mom, but if I was, there's no way I can afford this. We are a two-income family, and I don't know if we could afford that. So I think that's kind of my one issue. Something was said earlier about that it would be a good place for seniors. With the amount of stairs and stuff, I don't see how it could be for seniors. I'm not quite sure what their target is on the demographic for this area, but I do not see a lot of seniors moving into there. They said there's no future plans for that other parcel, which makes me believe two things. A, they come back in a year or two after this is all done and they kind of said exactly what Jen says. No, we already have approval. We're just going to build what we want now. Or B, they're selling that off. They're taking their money and their profits and they're running. Let somebody else come in and do it again, where we have to do this all over again. You know, I don't think they have, I don't think they're looking after us. I get they're a business, I run a business, your profit, I get it. But you don't do it at the expense of other people too. So yeah, I think that's kind of what I have, so thank you.
Thank you. And I think we have, yes, come forward and introduce yourself. And I have someone at the back, I believe, too.
Hi, good evening. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but there was a few comments made by the developers that I felt that needed to be said. One of them was that women-led low-income...
Sorry, do you mind introducing yourself for the people?
Josie Levesque. And I live at 20 Madison Court. I'm directly impacted by these buildings. Women-led low-income. I was a single mother for 7 years. I just recently moved to Strathmore with my fiance last March. The rent is proposed to be about $1,800 a month, and I can tell you as a single mother, I was making $42,000 a year, which brought me to $3,200 a month before taxes were taken off. $1,800 is not low income. It's not affordable in any way, shape, or form for any kind of person. $4,200 or $42,000 right now is what the starting position is at my company. So these are single mothers that are taking these positions, working 8 to 10 hours a day. I was one of them. $1,800 is not affordable. My children didn't play soccer. They didn't play baseball. They had no extracurricular activities. I struggled. We ate a lot of pasta and rice. It was horrible to try to make rent. Thankfully, I have amazing parents who helped me buy my first home. Recently sold it, moved here to Strathmore, but I can tell you my mortgage payments even broke me with the help of my parents on a monthly basis. It's $1,800. I was paying less than that in rent on $42,000 income, and I was struggling. I also was, at that time, a property manager who managed a CMHC building, who was also low income. Same as them, a developer came in. They built a low-income home. They hired my management company. I was the lead property manager on that company. I'm going to tell you, there was a lot of police presence. There was high drug ratio. There was people moving out, not cleaning up. I was in charge of going in, finding people to clean up. We had to get hazmat companies in there to pick up needles. bodily fluids. It was disgusting, and I know that I can't label that on low income because I was low income at that time. However, it was a problem, and this was renters, people who don't respect the space that they have, and a lot of people, and I hate to label this, but I was there and I saw it. I saw their applications. These people are being subsidized, so they don't respect because the money is free. I'm just saying from experience. So 2 years later, these developers sold. I lost my job as a property manager. This was during COVID. And another company took it over, and it's no longer a low-income or affordable housing or building. It's called Victoria Gardens, if you want to look it up. The transportation, we talked about this. Now, currently, I'm a project manager for a construction company. I'm very, very lucky and blessed to have moved up. And right now, what I do is I'm a manager of construction. So I know 12 meters to the eave. I know that with a gable end, we were looking at 16 meters with the roof line. Is that right? Well, you're looking at least 4 feet. You got your plumbing, your head. So how long would it be?
Like if it's 12 meters, it might be
to the eaves?
Yeah, so it might be
Your gable is going to be 1 meter?
a couple meters maybe.
And you've had that engineered spec?
It's still in the drawings.
So it's not engineered spec. Okay, so that's almost impossible, just from my experience. And then the developer spoke to people. This is what I do for a living now. Did not once visit anybody in the evening, visited during the daytime when everybody was at work. I never had the chance to speak to him. He was deceptive to my neighbor, told her that the meeting was on the 27th. As a construction project manager, the thing that I hold dearest to myself is integrity. The sightline photos are a joke. How many people are going to stand in their backyard and look down? Tell me how that works. It doesn't work. Also, 32 meters from their back deck to across the street. How many meters from their back deck to my backyard? Way less than 38 meters. And if they go ahead and build this monstrosity that's going to be in my backyard, what is going to be their consequences if their eaves are higher than 12 meters? Are we just going to grab a saw and cut it off? What is the consequences for them? What are my consequences if I want to build a 10-foot fence? I will get a fine. What's going to happen to them? Are we going to tell them to take down the building, start over? Or are we just going to say, you know what, it's already built. It's already too late. So I just want to know what the council plans to do as a consequence if they don't follow the bylaws. It's impossible. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have a question, Councillor Montgomery?
Yeah, Chuck, would you mind just talking about there's some, and I'm not clear on it myself, but can you just talk about when we say there's a height restriction or the building height could be 12 meters, can you just clarify what exactly that means as far as what they're allowed to do?
Yeah, so thanks, Your Worship, Councillor Montgomery. So if we set a height limit in the land use bylaw, the next stage at the development permit is the development permit, and they would need to submit plans or drawings that meets that 12-meter height. Yeah.
But so if we say 12 meters, that's 12 meters to the peak of the roof, right? Or is that to the eaves?
That's to the apex of the roof line, like the eaves.
Okay.
Yeah. But Councillor Montgomery, it's important to note that a single-family home low density is 10 meters minimum. Yeah. So this is 2 meters more than that.
Okay. And so I took a quick look on Google Maps, and I don't see any no parking signs along Centennial. So do we permit parking along Centennial?
I'm not sure. I wish we could have someone check. Maybe we can check and get back to you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Years ago, we had trouble with large semis parking on Centennial, and we did away with that, but I don't know about other vehicles. Okay, so going
sorry,
on.
I have a question for Chuck as well.
Oh, sorry.
My reading of the bylaw amendment says that it is a maximum of 2 stories. Did I read that correctly?
That's correct.
I think it's page 11 of our agenda package. It says under the purpose that it's not more than 2 stories.
Right. So if I had, can we pull up my presentation, Chris? a portion of the site is going to be a maximum 2 stories, that northern kind of peach color. And then that's the northern portion.
So if they were to put forward an engineering report that showed it at 12 meters and then built it at 14 meters, what would the town do?
It would be a stop order under the Municipal Government Act, and we'd shut them down. And the condition would be that, so on the next stage of development, we're at land use right now, a development permit would be applied for. They would submit plans, and a condition of that development permit, if it was issued, would be that they must build to the approved plans. If they don't build to the approved plans, we can issue a stop order and eventually take them to the Court of King's Bench and go that way and shut them down, make them tear it down. We're kind of good at getting folks to stop doing stuff, where it's a lot harder to get people to do stuff. I hope that helps. Thank you.
And Councillor Langmaid?
Chuck, don't run away just yet. My
Okay.
question's for you.
No
I was
problem.
wondering if you could just go over again, right now that parcel is zoned as M2. I understand that's our heaviest industrial district, and therefore there are some pretty heavy land uses that could be built there without a public hearing, if I understand. Could you go over that a little bit and what some of those potential uses could be that, you know, residents might not be able to have an input on if they were to come forward?
Thank you, Councillor Langmaid. It's a great question. So as noted, I'll just pull it up on the screen. That dark purple on your screen, that M2 is Strathmore's heaviest land use district. It's the heaviest thing that we have. This is most commonly south of the highway. We have some of this zone, but not all of it. We have primarily light industrial, that's the lighter purple in town. So the M2 General Industrial District would mean that people can skip the land use stage that we're at right now and just go right to development permit, which they don't deal with council, they deal with staff. And the way permitted uses work in Alberta, we're obligated to approve them if they meet the land use bylaw. So I can read some of those uses for you, your worship, you know, and these are things that we would be obligated to approve. Some of them we wouldn't be obligated to, but we would take into consideration the operation, but there's a large chunk that we'd be obligated to approve. And that means once approved, if we get noise and smell complaints, that we have very little in our arsenal to handle, to fight that complaint, because it's a permitted use in the land use bylaw and we're obligated to approve it. So these are just some examples. Automotive and equipment repair shop, contractor services, general industrial minor, fleet services, mini or self-storage, heavy vehicle and equipment sales rentals, protective emergency services, veterinary services, auto body and paint shop, detention and correction facilities, equipment and storage yard, general industrial major, private recreational vehicle storage, veterinary services major, there's some utilities in here, retail stores, that kind of thing. So those are a number of uses that people can just skip the land use stage, skip the council stage, and come right to staff with an application, and if we don't approve it, they can appeal us. So, you know, there's some kind of potential, I think, in my opinion, larger conflicts than medium-density townhomes in the existing district today. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, Councillor Langmaid. I believe we had one more person, or a couple of more people at the back, 3 people at the back. If you could come forward and introduce yourself with the microphone on.
Good evening, Council and Your Honor. My name's Mike Gutsfeld. I live on Center Street. Now, what I'm seeing here now, like there's the split between the one that is blatantly 2-story, and then there's still the one that's noted on this that actually says 3-story that backs on the Centennial. Now, what's going to happen is, and we're seeing it on Center Street already with the fourplexes, you got a lot of load with parking in front of residents and that and everybody else, as well as people that are not abiding by the bylaws or the street signage that says, you know, no parking within 5 meters of the stop sign. And as well, you know, I know our town is growing, and you know, it's come a long way since, you know, 2000. But the thing is, you're going to have a higher density of people coming in into that zone. And we're going to be seeing a lot of, well, we've already had mention of it, the vandalism and that, and then, you know, just a lack of bylaw enforcement or municipal law enforcement in that, because after 5 o'clock, there's nobody around and that. So, you know, you're going to have problems. And then I don't think the RCMP are going to be responding to every single complaint. Now, we've got to take a serious look at it, and I know you guys are here to do that. But, you know, as a resident in that area, I see some things that are happening that, you know, should be stopped now or put to a stop, because we're seeing people racing on Center Street. They're racing on Centennial, and you bring more people in there, somebody's going to get hurt. And that, so we got to watch what we're doing, how we're doing it, and for what reasons. And that, because, you know, you look at it, you've got a school there, elementary school, and that, and, you know, they're on the walkway there, pathway. And my daughter, when she was going to school, she almost got hit a couple of times on Centennial at the three-way. But that's about it. That's all I can say. But, you know, we just got to take a good, serious look at it, because, you know, jumping the gun on this and, you know, not having enough time to actually get other members of the community involved, because, you know, there is no written notice forwarded. Like, everybody can say email, but there should actually be a letter forwarded to each resident within the affected zone. Not just, you know, hearsay. Because, you know, I've seen that happen before with one company in Calgary when I was living there. And, you know, they tried to get something in when there was a lack of people involved. And I went out and I ended up walking through my community. And lo and behold, instead of having, you know, 100 people maybe show up, we had a few hundred. And they were all, you know, we ended up changing it. But, you know, the thing is, we've got to avoid that sort of confrontation here. Let's do it as best as we can for our community. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we had a few more people at the back. If you would, I'm not sure who was first, if you can decide among yourselves.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. I think some of this has already been said, and I wasn't planning on speaking, but my concerns are, it seems if the north and the south areas are all done, that now, once they're built out, it's going to be bigger than the original plan, in my head. It doesn't look like what we talked about the last time is maybe having some of the buildings on an angle. There's only one in there. I'm at a Bayside Place, and I'm facing this. So now all of a sudden, if that part is developed eventually, there's 6 buildings there, where before there was 5. Also, why is only a portion to be affordable housing? We need housing. We're not disputing that. We need affordable housing in Strathmore. This is not affordable housing. It doesn't look like it's accessible for people with small children taking groceries up those stairs. It's not accessible for seniors. So what is the point? I know it's a big piece of land and we need to use it, but right now, it doesn't look good. Once again, the number of allowed vehicles is an issue. And going back to Centennial Drive, I drove it again tonight, and yes, there's a sign that says no large trucks can be parked there. However, more and more smaller vehicles are parked there, mostly crooked, if anybody decides to go down there. And when the snowplows are trying to go down that road is getting narrower and narrower. There's going to be an accident because of all these people that are parked in an angle. I don't know why they're allowed to park there. So what I'm asking, if this goes ahead with this north part of this development, can they not use that approach from Centennial while that part of the building is going on. Instead of coming all the way around through Bayside and having to go over there, can they not use that just while the building part is going on? Just that much to ask for? Because there already is traffic parked further down on Centennial. I don't understand that. The other things are, was this decision to go ahead with this southern, the southern part, just so that they could get the density required to get them approved to go ahead with the development? And is there a guarantee of on-site management with these rentals? Is anybody responsible that's going to actually live there? And I think that's about, oh, the elevation. There is an elevation. Trust me, I live on a lower unit at 8 Bayside Place, and there is a definite elevation. So is there a reason it couldn't be lowered in that new area? I'm not a developer, I'm not a person with knowledge with that, but is there a reason it couldn't be? Because it is higher by quite a bit. So those are just my questions that I thought of today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next person, someone from the back. There we go. And if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself at the microphone.
Good evening, Council. My name's Joel Chasson, and I think most of what's been said by everyone tonight, I would kind of echo their opinions. The only thing that I would add is just that for those of you who are on the fence or kind of neutral, I take a little exception to kind of the implication of kind of looking at this in a way that if it's not approved, that there could be a large industrial facility that's there. I think that that, of course, is always a risk that could happen. But right now, I think it's important to look at if it's passed, then we're guaranteed that this over height, in my opinion, residential facility that doesn't meet all of these other things that other residents have stated, all their concerns, that we're guaranteed that that will go in, as opposed to right now, which is just bare land. So that's all I had to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other potential speakers at the back who wish to express the opposition to this project? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone present deemed to be affected by the bylaw who wishes to speak? And Jonathan, do we allow any clarification from the original or from the company? How does that come about?
Thank you, Worship and Council. So according to our procedure bylaw, each person presenting is only given one opportunity to speak. Council may, though, ask clarifying questions.
Okay. So I guess I want to be as fair as possible. So if one of the members from the company hasn't, we have a question from Councillor Peterson. So if one of the people from the company hasn't spoken, that person could come forward and answer questions?
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, at this point, Council can ask those clarifying questions of anybody that's presented.
Okay, so I'll do that then. So is there anyone present deemed to be affected by the bylaw who wishes to speak? And then are there any questions of clarification from councillors? Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a question for the developers, for Rockwell Holding or New Rock Development. So Ms. Chasson imparted information to this council tonight that said that that in her research and her experience, that you are a development company and not a rental company, and she made comments that said that the agreement that is made with CMHC is a 10-year agreement and not in perpetuity, and that if sold, the affordable housing component the 20% of the units under the CMHC agreement are void upon sale. So I'm wondering if you could shed some light on that, speak to that.
Sure. Good evening, Your Worship and councillors. I did have a pleasant conversation with the lady who did make those comments, and I'll clarify a little bit if I could. On the CMHC program, the 10-year affordability clause does carry forward with the project. The only instance where it would not, if it was sold, would be then the CMHC guarantee would be removed. So anybody buying the project within the 10 years very likely would follow that affordability because they're actually buying the CMHC financing incentives that CMHC provides. So it would be extremely rare for that affordability to be removed prior to the 10 years because they would lose the financing.
So to be clear, the agreement with the CMHC has a 10-year end date.
Correct. It's a 10-year affordability, and along with that affordability, it's also a 10 years of not increasing the rent more than the inflation.
Right.
And that lasts for 10 years. After 10 years, it becomes a market project.
Right. So whether you owned it or someone else owned it, at the end of 10 years, it is like any other property.
Correct.
And so the incentive then is to the builder is that you can utilize the CMHC funds to move the project forward. The advantage to community is that you have an $1,800 rental apartment. 13 of the 50 units are under that agreement, and they're there for 10 years.
Correct. The affordability amount for Strathmore has not yet been determined. So we don't know yet, actually. We're going to be working with CMHC. They will work with not us directly, but with the people who are doing the financing for us. They will determine what that affordability factor is.
So we don't know if it's $1,800.
We don't know for sure. And you know, I want to be extremely clear on the factors. So in the $1,800 number, in the Calgary region, the average rent based on the 30% income is about
35.
Yeah, around that number. Strathmore doesn't fit in that region.
Demographic, yeah.
Right? So there's a factor of what is affordable. Is it going to be the Alberta average, which is $1,538, or would it be the rural average, which would be $1,100?
Right.
We expect it to be the Alberta average, which would be in the $1,500 range. Yeah.
And then just one more point of clarification. We are not talking about low-cost housing. We're talking about affordable housing.
Correct. So
under the CMHC guidelines.
Yes. So you have to keep in mind that for any new building these days is expensive. So CMHC is taking the approach, well, let's get more product built. And then what happens is there's a flight to new. And then the people who can afford the more expensive new product will, and then it frees up some of the lower end units that are a little older. That's some of the strategies CMHC has used in this program.
Is there a potential after the 10-year designation that these properties could be sold as individual units?
No, it would be very difficult. We would have to condominiumize them. We don't design these at all to be condominiumized and resold.
Thank you.
Okay. The only other clarification I could make was in regards to New Rock and our experience with rental. So currently, we've just are completing a CMHC program in Medicine Hat. It's 95% rented. It's been rented. We put the ad up for an hour, and we get enough applications to satisfy the need for weeks at a time. Regina is about 50% rented. It's not completed yet. Saskatoon around the same time frame. So while we are relatively new to the rental industry, we have completed projects and have them being rented already.
I remember from your last presentation that, can you tell me what the rent is in Medicine Hat?
Sure, the rents in Medicine Hat the affordable rent was $1,150, $1,050 to $1,150. The market rents are $1,275 to $1,525.
Thank you.
They're a slightly different design than this product, but.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Montgomery?
Thank you. So one question I have just has to do with parking. So how is parking allotted to the various units? Like there's obviously one per unit, I presume. And then
We do one per unit, and then we offer the extra unit as an option to rent. So we haven't set what that rent would be. It's sometimes between $20 and $40 a month. Because we don't have 2 stalls for everyone, we take that approach.
Okay. And I guess, do you guys take an interest in like where like excess vehicles would go, ones that like you don't have capacity for on site?
No, well, we just have to work with the area for where the extra capacity might go. It typically does go to the surrounding streets. Yeah, it does. Now, 1.66, in Medicine Hat we have 45 units, and we have 15 extra stalls, and we've taken up about 80% of those extra units being rented. So people do like to have the parking much closer to their unit if they can.
Yeah. So. Okay, thank you.
My question is, when you look at the taller buildings along Centennial, what would be the width of the building that might impact someone in the Madison Court area? So not the length of it along Center Street, but the width of it.
I believe they're about 30 feet.
Okay.
But I really need to clarify that, actually.
Okay, and then the only other clarifying question I had, I think, was dealt with. There was a comment that said that this was brand new to your company and that you were almost an experiment here to see how it would work. But you have had experience building these types of...
Right, so New Rock was founded on affordable housing for sale. So we pioneered a program throughout Western Canada where we actually provided down payment assistance and monthly payment assistance to help people get into home ownership. And we provided roughly just over $20 million to homeowners to buy their own home. That's what New Rock was founded on. About 7 or 8 years ago, CMHC took a different approach and said, we don't really believe in home ownership anymore, so they wouldn't allow us to do our program, even though it was all our money. So we would set, here's the cost, here's our profit, because we're a for-profit company, and the balance we would give back to the homeowner over 7 or 8 years. And it worked really well, but we were unable to continue that product. So we took a diversion into seniors housing. And then when this program came up with CMHC, we were just a natural partner to work with CMHC to provide that affordable rentals in a similar way. And our plan also on property management, New Rock's philosophy on property management is not to get every last dollar. If you look at our Medicine Hat project, we are under market on our rents. We believe in getting really good people, not getting every last dollar. We will be managing each site as a kind of a hybrid model to have someone in each location to make sure that the site is properly managed, with a centralization in Medicine Hat for paperwork and leases and screening.
Okay, thank you. I have 2 last questions. One is the northern part that could be in your next phase. Just to clarify again for people, those are 2-story?
Yes.
Okay. Second question is, there was a concern from a letter that was read to us about the length of time, and this could go on a great deal of time, and noise and construction impacts. How long does a project like your first phase take from start to finish?
I'd like it to take 12 months, but I would probably say 16 to 18 in this environment, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you. So with the undeveloped portion, like the north portion of the property, what is the plan for that until it's actually developed?
We would just hold it as vacant land, so we would keep it, keep the weeds under control and manage it that way as we normally do with a vacant parcel. We don't honestly have plans for that site yet. With the lower density, rentals are harder to make work. It's not so much about the cost of the land on that side, it's more about the cost of the units. So we need that 3.5 story for density. So we anticipate that it would be a for sale townhome style like we showed. We would consider our estates product, which is about 7 units per acre. It's only a single story. We're focused on this one first, and then we'll kind of see where we go with the next piece.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Any further questions? For Mr. Enns? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions of clarification for anyone? Seeing none? Oh, there's one in the back. Okay, if you wouldn't mind coming forward to the microphone again.
Just a quick question in regards to the values that this gentleman had noted as 1,100 with the low income for the housing. Was that including utilities?
Utilities are extra.
So that's, utilities are extra, then any condo fees would be extra too?
There are no condo fees.
Oh, all right.
These are all townhouses, I believe. Yeah, no condo fees. They're rentals. Question? Do you want to come to the microphone, please?
Just in that last comment you made, you stated. The folks at home can't hear you at all unless you're at the microphone. So in that last comment just made, you said 3.5 stories. You're promoting these as 3 stories. So now we're at 3.5 stories.
It's I call it that because there's a basement window in the lower, like there's a basement on these and we have a basement window.
So you're digging into the ground?
Yep.
Okay.
Hi, just a point of clarity. So there's a basement on them, but I feel quite confident when I spoke to you this week, these were single on the bottom, 2-story on the top with no basement. That was something I asked you very clearly. The other thing I just wanted to ask a point of clarity on is that if you were to resell these units or resell the whole investment property, you actually can't really guarantee what terms the next investor would take for the mortgage. So really, the agreement with the CMHC Select is with yourself. It's not actually with the property because they would make their own terms of the loan. So maybe you could just clarify those 2 points. Thank you.
So to clarify the design, there's a stacked unit. So the main level is a few stairs to get up to the main level, and that's your living area. And then you have 2 bedrooms in the basement. And those are bedrooms, so it's like a basement window. And then you go up a set of indoor stairs to get to the units, 2nd story, and then the bedrooms are on the 3rd level. So it's a stacked, it's a stack. It's like a basement and a main level and then a 2-story on top of that. And as far as the financing and as if we sold the project, if you know, the CMHC Select has one of the CMHC ways of trying to make this work is the 50-year amortized mortgage and the CMHC guarantee. With that CMHC guarantee, you receive the best interest rate in the industry. So we're getting 75 basis points above the Canada Bond 10-year yield, not a loan interest you could get without the guarantee. So could someone come in and we sold it to somebody who didn't use that financing? Yes, it's possible. It just would not be expected. Yeah, it's not probable.
And I think the other thing there's been some confusion as to whether this is low income or affordable. We have such a low inventory of rental places for people struggling to live in Strathmore that this option has not been approved yet, but this option is to help with the affordability of finding places to rent. Strictly from the fact that if you have more inventory of units, that can help the price of rentals in the town for people looking. This is not, I don't know if people were confused or they got the wrong information. This is not low-income housing.
No, it's not low income, no.
Okay, and the other thing, I got a clarification from Legislative Services. The questions for clarification are to come from council. We can't open it up to the gallery because that lends itself to potential arguments or problems between presenters and the public at large. So what happens in this public hearing is we have the information presented, and then it'll come back to the public meeting for us to put a second motion on the floor. And once a second motion is put on the floor, that allows us to discuss and debate as a group of 7 people. So, are there any questions of clarification from council for the presenter? Seeing none, thank you. The public hearing for bylaw 23-15, being a bylaw to amend the land use bylaw number 14-11, is closed at 7:20 p.m. We move now to public comments. The public is welcome to provide public comments regarding items on the agenda. You're welcome to provide those comments in person during the council meeting, virtually or in writing. If you wish to provide public comments virtually or in writing, there is a request to speak at a council meeting form on the town website, and you can submit that by the end of the day on the Sunday before the council meeting. In order to ensure procedural fairness, council requests that the public refrain from speaking to items that have been or will be heard through a public hearing process. So do we have any public comments tonight on the meeting agenda?
We have not received any registered public comments, Your Worship.
Thank you. That brings us now to item 5, delegations. We have 5.1 delegation, Mr. John Trofimak. Are you here tonight? Yes. If you wouldn't mind coming to the microphone. We have received the written information from you.
My name is John Trofimak, and I'm here to discuss all the noise and stuff that goes on at the cabana there. I live at Lambert Village across the street, independent seniors community, and we have to listen to everything that goes on there. We got squealing tires, they sit there, they rev their motors, they yell, they drive around in circles, you name it, they do it there. It's every single night. 7 days a week, usually goes till 11, 12 o'clock, nonstop. And they're driving in and out, in and out, in and out. And I don't know if there's anything you can do about it, but we're tired of it. Like, we can't even open our windows at night. It's noisy. We can't sit outside in the afternoon or in the evening because it's too much noise. So, and the garbage that's strewn there, I've talked to the guys that come there in the morning. Every morning they have to pick up the garbage. And what I got a kick out of the other day, I noticed they were putting in a cement pad for another garbage container. And I talked to the guy, I said, "Do you think that's going to help?" And he said, "Probably not. They don't care about garbage containers. They just open the windows and chuck everything out." And we're getting tired of it. Like, I've talked to the RCMP. They said, "We can't do anything unless we have a plate number and we catch them in the act." So I don't know what you can do. And like on Wednesdays, there's usually the square dancers in the cabana there. They use it. And these guys are driving around in circles, making noise. So I'm sure the square dancers aren't too happy about that. You know, they're trying to listen to music and do their thing and that. So I don't know. I'd like to have something done about it. So we get a little bit of peace and quiet. But anyways, that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments. Are there some people that could come forward as a further delegation so that we hear from, it's very difficult as a council to just react and make decisions based on one person coming to us. We need to hear from a lot of different people to make it easier for us to make decisions. This has been a topic of discussion we've had as a council and with our administration for quite a while. We're looking at solutions, but I'm wondering if you have more people that could also possibly come forward to us and we could work together.
I could probably get a few together, yeah. Like,
okay.
How many would you need? Like, I don't know.
Jonathan, what would you suggest as far as a go forward? And then I'll go to Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. So it would be up to council what the number would be. I think if you get I don't know, a couple of neighbors together to write a letter, a joint letter. I think that would be a good first step. And then we can work with the individual as well on what next steps could be to get that information in front of council.
Okay, does that sound good for you?
So get a written letter.
Yeah, put together and maybe have people sign. Not that it necessarily has to be a petition, but we just need to hear from more people.
Yeah, I could do that.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Peterson?
I just wanted, and I really appreciate you coming forward and I really assure you, just as what the mayor said, we know it's an issue and we've certainly discussed it. And lots of times when we have discussed that, the ramifications of addressing it are monetary. And you know, there's a cost, and so it becomes a little bit more complex. And so they're, you know, looking to the community for willingness to address it from that perspective is really important. But I know you have a building full of vocal people who have legitimate concerns about their peace and quiet and concerns on a daily basis. And I want to assure you, this council has been really sympathetic to that and shares in the concerns of the issue.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for speaking and being willing to come forward with others.
Thanks for listening to me.
Thank you. That brings us to item 6, consent agenda. And council, you've seen the consent agenda items that have been presented to you. Are there any items that any of you feel you'd like to see removed from the consent agenda and put back in the public meeting agenda?
Your Worship.
Councillor Peterson?
I just have a question. There's nothing I want removed. I just had a question to administration about 8.2, the rural renewal stream. I had questions from community members about this. Twofold. One was I told them that it was the intent of senior leadership to bring it to a future meeting relatively soon. And second, that they asked if they would be allowed to speak, and I think that I am correct in telling them that if they wanted to speak to that night, they would go through the processes of speaking to Jonathan about delegation, or if they wanted to simply hear the report and then think about meeting with senior leadership or something at a future time.
Thank you, Worship and Council. So yeah, there'd be several options. Maybe the most easy would be if we put this on the agenda, they would have the opportunity to speak under the public comments section.
But they could wait too until the next time. That's what they were asking, if they could come forward. They would just go through the normal process of being asked to, asking to speak to an issue at a council meeting.
Yeah, or delegation, right? We can work with them if they get in touch with the
Yeah,
services.
and my thanks to council or to senior leadership for working on this. I'm prepared with a motion, Your
Okay,
Worship.
thank you.
Your Worship, I would move that council adopt the recommendations of the following agenda reports by an omnibus motion. 7.1, regular council meeting minutes, June 7, 23. Special council meeting minutes, June 14, 23. Corporate strategic plan and financial plan quarterly report, quarter 1, 2023. Rural renewal stream. Donation of surplus assets, picnic tables. A letter from Martin Shields MP regarding prioritizing municipal input in future RCMP contract policing decisions. And all of these, of course, can be found within the agenda package for the public. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. And just to reassure the public that we don't just pass these to be done and quick, and we don't look at them or understand them. We get presented the written packages from our staff, and we have the opportunity to read through our agendas through the weekend and before Wednesday. So this consent agenda, it's all information that we've had a chance to read and understand, and it's public information on our agenda. So this is just a way to streamline the meetings, and yeah, that's it. So we have that motion on the floor. All in favor? And that motion is carried. So we move now to item 9.1, land use amending bylaw number 23-15. Chuck, you'll be back speaking.
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. I don't have much else to add. My department supports the redesignation application for the reasons outlined in your report. A portion of the units will be affordable. The remaining portion will be rentals, which Strathmore is short on. I think medium density is appropriate for the land. 12 meters is not a significant height increase from the 10 meters that's currently allowed in your low density districts. And I think that the site being zoned M2 right now is potentially a larger threat than medium density residential. I'm happy to answer any questions on behalf of the planning department. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for Chuck from council?
Not a question, but just for point of interest, due to the fact that I had a previous engagement prior to the land use bylaw, I have to disqualify myself from voting tonight on this issue. Thank you.
And the reason for that is Councillor Wegener wouldn't have been privy to any of the discussion or comments or information brought forward in the public hearing. So the MGA does not allow him to take part in the vote since he was absent for parts of the public hearing. So we are on to the discussion phase, and basically, in order for us to discuss this,
I think we need a motion first.
we do need a motion, yep.
I'm ready with the motion.
Councillor Wiley?
I move that council give second reading to bylaw number 2315, being a bylaw to amend the land use bylaw number 1411.
Thank you. And now that we have a motion on the floor for second reading, we can have discussion, questions, comments. Councillor Wiley, did you want to speak to your motion?
Sure, I'll speak to my motion. So last week I was talking to a student who informed me that her family moved, and I said, oh, congratulations, moving's very exciting. And she said, well, we have to move out of town. I said, well, no, that's exciting too. And she said, well, it's not very great. We don't have any water coming to the house, and we've had to be walking to the neighbor's rural residence to get water. Now, how does this connect to the motion tonight? This is an issue of supply and demand in our town. So by adding a variety of styles of housing, this missing middle, as administration called it, this makes housing more affordable. So the builder told us that typically what they see is a rush to the new. So some of the places in town that would be maybe more affordable or low-income housing, those people will move into these residents, and then the low-income housing becomes some of the stuff that's already existing in town. So again, these homes are not being built as low-income housing, but they will meet the supply and demand, the shortage that we have. So there is a shortage of housing in this town, and this is exactly what we need. So I will be supporting this motion tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Wiley. Any other comments? Councillor Peterson?
Thank you, Worship. I recognize that this is difficult for many members of community, and as I've said before, I live in a community that has undergone extraordinary change in terms of density. We face parking challenges and other things, but the increased density in our neighborhood and with affordable housing has brought about a great deal of care for individuals within community in terms of people who live in my neighborhood very often are families with no vehicles or only one vehicle, so they live close into the downtown, and their children can walk to school and they can walk to work. And I understand all of the complications that come with change. One of the things that I know from 9 years on council is that our citizens are telling us that Strathmore is not an affordable community, and this is consistent across our province. It's not just germane to our community. The difference is that in this small and manageable community of 15,000 people, we have an opportunity to make a difference. I know there are people in this chamber tonight who are upset and will be upset if this passes, but there will be hundreds of people in this community that will be devastated if they continue to not be able to find affordable housing. We know right now that we have overcrowding in rental properties, significant. In my neighborhood, that is a major, major issue. I know that I, as an educator for 40 years, I keep in contact with lots of students who live and work in our community, and they are living in very less than acceptable circumstances in basements that have no access to laundry, They are still paying $900 a month where they have no access to cooking facilities, and they are struggling. So even though we might be looking at rents of $1,200 where a couple people can share those, that does become affordable. It's certainly different from what we have now. We have in this community a housing crisis. We have also a low-cost housing crisis, and my hope is that by providing more properties for people to live in affordably, that it will allow the community to move into more capacity for low-cost housing as well, because our wait lists on the low-cost housing environment is nothing less than frightening at this point. And on the Strathmore social housing side, it is heartbreaking to see the numbers that are waiting just for a place to live. And so, you might ask, well, where are these people? Must be living somewhere. Well, they are. They're most often living in houses that are less than 1,200 square feet. They're living with elderly parents. They're living with other family members. It creates all kinds of issues. Some of the issues which were articulated tonight are the ones that are occurring regularly throughout our community because of housing pressures. So I will be supporting this motion, and I appreciate everyone who's come forward and respect that you've used your voices in a democratic environment tonight, and thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Any other comments? Councillor Mitzner?
Okay, I think we're all in agreement here tonight that we have a shortage of housing. That's not the issue here. And I thank the developer for the concept to provide additional housing. I will not be in favor of this in this location. The risk factor with Fortis as the most direct neighbor, it is an industrial park, and I would like to see it remain an industrial park. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mitzner. Any other comments from any of the councillors? Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you. So from my perspective and as a member of council, I'm obligated to try to balance or try to find a balance between things like what a developer would like to do with a piece of property versus how that will affect the town, how that will affect, and more importantly, how that will affect the people that live in the area already. With this particular development and this particular area, I don't feel that this is necessarily a large deviation from what is I should rephrase that. It's a change. This is a proposed change, and when I look at like what, as I said, how is this going to affect the people around the area, and will that be negative? How negative will that be? And yeah, I'll say it's not an easy thing to balance because I can't predict the future, and so I can't foresee, for instance, how many vehicles each unit will have. As I mentioned last time, and I'll mention it again now, parking is a concern for me. That's something that's been expressed quite clearly as a concern by the people that are already living in the area. At 8 Bayside Place, for instance, it's been noted that there are already parking concerns. Which is why actually I'm so interested in finding out about whether we can allow parking or parking is allowed on Centennial, because this kind of seems similar to I believe it's called the Ranch area behind Walmart, where directly behind Walmart there's kind of like townhomes, and then across the street from that there's single family homes, and obviously like there's parking that overflows onto I believe it's called Archie Kleiber Trail. And so I recognize that there are going to be negative effects from allowing a development like this to be built here. The town has laid out certain rules, for instance, 1.5 parking spots per unit. The developer is exceeding that requirement. What's that? Well, I think the town's requirement is 1.5, but yeah, so the developer is exceeding the town's requirements. Personally, I think that the requirements might possibly have to be reviewed because I don't know that they're realistic for today's world, essentially, where many families or homes have 2 vehicles or more. So that is a concern for me, one that I would like to see cleared up, I guess. I look at the plans for the north part of this property, and as it's been noted by some of the current residents, there is the possibility that somebody could come along at some point and decide to develop taller units. However, I believe this bylaw change, and Chuck, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, this bylaw change includes a direct district overlay, which will limit the north parcel to 2-story buildings?
That's correct, Councilor Montgomery. That's correct.
Okay. And I think about, if we're allowing 2-story homes, to be backing onto the existing homes, is that really so different than 2-story single-family homes being built there and backing onto these existing homes? And I don't personally see a big difference between 2-story attached homes versus 2-story single homes when it comes to kind of privacy issues or backing onto somebody else's property. I understand that this is not ideal for the people in this area. I even I ask myself, how would I feel if this was happening near me? To be honest, I actually do live in an area where there are essentially increased density developments going on, and it's not ideal for sure. I mean, from the perspective of there's been increased traffic, increased kind of parking issues, more people. The other issues that go with having more people or new people in the area, rental properties. And I have to balance that, I have to balance my personal feelings with private property rights and with, what people should be allowed to do or with property when they own it or want to develop it. And as far as affordability goes, I'll I guess briefly echo what others have said here, and that is that I never, to me, I'm not personally concerned about the affordability of these units. It's I'll say there's almost kind of this dissonance almost, I'll call it, where on one hand we have concerns where people are concerned that there's going to be, rental caliber people living there, but at the same time, there's concerns about how expensive it's going to be and that, lower income people aren't going to be able to afford to live there. So it seems to me that there's going to probably be people that are not without means living there. So is the quality of the area necessarily going to decline? I don't know. I can't say that it will. If it's more expensive, nicer units, I mean, you're probably going to attract, the type of people that can afford to rent nicer, more expensive units. This will increase the total housing supply in town, which, and I'll be honest, I'm an owner of rental properties, and so obviously any time that that development goes on in town, that increases the housing supply, which obviously is going to make it so that rentals are less valuable. So when I consider all of these things together, and I don't discount at all the feelings or the fears of the people that are living in this area, and there's been many good concerns raised, I'll say even, and I appreciate the information that's been shared this evening and at the previous public hearing. I've learned a few things myself tonight that was not part of our agenda package, and I'm grateful for those things. Yeah, so at this point, I'm going to support the bylaw change for the reasons I've very slowly outlined in my previous comments, and thank you very much for your patience, everyone.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Councillor Langmaid.
I just don't want to be left out. Everybody else said something. No, on a serious note, one of the biggest challenges of being on town council and being in the position that I'm in is that it requires balance. It requires us to balance the very valid concerns of everyone involved in any decision that we make. And that's a really difficult thing to do. For the residents who have come tonight to speak up and share their point of view, I really appreciate it. For those that live on Madison Court, you do live on a beautiful street. I must say, I live not too far from you. I drive past this site, actually, every time I come to a council meeting, I drive past this site and drive past the entrance to your little, I'm not sure I'd call it a cul-de-sac, double cul-de-sac, whatever it is. It's a beautiful street, and I understand why so many property owners are here tonight, because they want to defend that, and that's an understandable thing. That also must be balanced with the needs of our community overall, and that's that we don't have enough places for people to live. When I'm very frequently on the local Facebook pages and talking to locals who, and I keep, there's a recurring theme, and that's that people are looking for housing that doesn't exist. And the people we aren't hearing from tonight are the people who've had to move because that housing doesn't exist. I have a friend right now who sadly informed me over the weekend that she's looking at leaving Strathmore to move to Regina, of all places, for affordability. So just to keep it brief tonight, and in the interest of everyone here, I'll leave it at that and just say that I appreciate everyone coming forward, and one of the biggest challenges of being on council is that balance. Tonight, in this specific case, I find that our need for housing is too great to say no. Our need for our residents to have appropriate and the definition of affordable can be a bit can vary from person to person. What's affordable for me might not be affordable for somebody else, and what's affordable for somebody else definitely might not be affordable for me. But tonight I have to put the needs of people who are searching desperately for housing first. So I will be supporting this bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Langmaid. I would echo some of what you've all said as a council prior to me speaking now. This has been one of the most difficult decisions for me, because one of the things we have to do as councillors is make decisions based on what we think is the best for the majority of our residents. And I know we have a high need for rental places. This company has built in other communities successfully. They listened to the residents in the area and changed their design to lessen the impact. They moved the 3-story to Centennial, where there's more distance between those units and potential housing on the other side of Centennial. They've increased their landscaping. They've lessened the number of units. They've added a playground. Our town has done a traffic count study that shows that this can work in this area. And so in my own world, I wish it was in a different spot, but it's not. And we do have a lot of people who really are desperate to find places to live. We have businesses that can't hire people because people can't find places to live, so they can't take the jobs. So I will be supporting this as well. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion for a second reading? Opposed? Okay, we're looking for a motion for third reading.
I move that council give third reading to bylaw 2315, being a bylaw to amend the land use bylaw number 1411.
All in favor? Opposed? And the motion is carried. Thank you to everyone who came forward to present your ideas and your concerns. And we hope that everything will work out for everyone and that residents of Strathmore will be able to find places to affordably live. That brings us to item 10, councillor information inquiries. 10.1, questions between councillors and council statements. Councillor Peterson.
Your Worship, thank you for the opportunity. Today is National Aboriginal Day, June 21st, and I want to start out by thanking our Strathmore leadership team for their conscientiousness in observation and in encouraging their staff to be participatory and in bringing it to the whole community. I also want to acknowledge that National Aboriginal Day is a time for recognition and celebration of diverse cultures, of opportunity for reconciliation, and for education and opportunities to learn, which we had in our park tonight. And I'd also like to thank Deputy Mayor Wagner for his representing council tonight in those beautiful Indigenous ceremony. And finally, it's an opportunity for unity in the supporting of National Aboriginal Day, because it does help to promote understanding and awareness between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people in Canada. And I just want to say, Your Worship, I was really pleased and privileged today to sit with Elder Ruth Skelplock at McDougall Centre and hear her hopes of the future for not just her grandchildren, but my grandchildren and everybody's children and grandchildren in building a better world in a better way. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any other questions or councillor statements? No? Okay, we move on to boards and committee reports. I believe you submitted one.
Yes, Your Worship, Councillor Wagner, I'm very grateful that, Deputy Mayor Wagner put forward both the Wheatland Housing Management Body and the WADEMSA report on our behalf.
Thank you very much, Councillor Peterson. That brings us to 10.3, question and answer period. Any burning questions for Councillor for CAO Scoble? Seeing none, we have any administrative inquiries, Jonathan? Yes, you can.
So just in terms of someone who lives in the south end of town and the name for which Mayor Field calls my community, but I just want to congratulate the planning and development and the operations on the whole parking and new area of that ball diamond. What a beauty coming into town. And the work that the fire department has done on their building, it looks so nice. And then with the ball diamond right after that, the pavement in the parking lot, I'm sure that Holy Trinity is happy, or Holy Cross, I'm sorry, is happy with the no mud being tracked into their school because it's a paved parking lot. It really just does look great. And the disruption to the community was non-existent. So just really thank you.
Any administrative inquiries, Jonathan? None. We have no notices of motion tonight, so at this time, I'm looking for a motion to go into closed meeting. Councillor Langmaid.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'd like to move that council move in camera to discuss items related to sections 23, subsection 1A, and 24, subsection 1A of the Freedom of Information and Privacy Act at 7:55 p.m. Would you like me to read out the specific items on the agenda, Mayor?
Is that preferable, Kara? Should we read out the individual items as we go into
12.1,
close?
12.2, 12.3? Yes, read them.
Okay, thank you.
All right, those three sections being 12.1, the advocacy strategy update, 12.2, intermunicipal collaboration committee, and 12.3, council and CAO dialogue. I'm not sure if I...
Thank you. All in favor? And that is carried. And do we need a quick break?